Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 GMC Canyon, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster stoplight switch kit. Before we get into that though, let's take a minute, we'll check this out and make sure that this is going to be something you're even going to need. To figure out if you're going to need a stoplight switch kit or not, it's pretty simple. It's mainly going to depend on what type of supplemental braking system that you have installed on your Canyon. And there's three big ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. The Roadmaster InvisiBrake, the Demco Stay-In-Play Duo with the wireless coach link monitor, and that's the system we have installed on our truck today, as well as the standard Demco Stay-In-Play Duo. And I'm sure there's others out there, but those are the big ones that we carry, and I'm confident that this switch will work with. And the whole point of the stoplight switch is to tell the braking system that the brake pedal in the truck is indeed getting pulled down when that system is activated. And when that happens, it'll send power out to your indicator light. Okay, so for example, I'll just turn our system on here. If I push our brake pedal down, all right, acting like the system's actually doing it, our indicator light will illuminate red. All right, and so that's the best way to do things to get the most accurate representation of what is actually going on. Without using the stoplight switch kit, you can still use these supplemental braking systems, but the only issue is without the stoplight switch kit, the indicator light will only illuminate if the system has power. So it's kind of only telling you half the story, right? You could have the actuator that actually pulls the brake pedal down completely disconnected from the brake pedal, and the light still come on because the system's getting power, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And so it can mislead you, right? And you want to know what's actually happening in your towed vehicle, if everything's working like it should. Now with the Canyon, the reason that you're not able to just use the factory stoplight switch, because they're in here from the factory, right? That's how the truck knows that you're pushing the brake and tells the brake lights to turn on and things like that. But the reason you can't use it, the factory one, is because the Canyon requires you to disconnect the battery whenever you're flat towing it down the road. So that's not going to have power, you can't tie into that. But with the Roadmaster stoplight switch kit, you wire it directly to the battery, so it'll always have power and be ready to work whenever you're flat towing. Other than that, at the end of the day, not really a whole lot to this. The major takeaways would be if you happen to have either one of the Stay-In-Play Duo supplemental braking systems or the Roadmaster InvisiBrake supplemental braking system, this is something I'd highly recommend picking up. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. There's not a whole lot to it. The worst part is just working up underneath the dash. It's tight and whatnot. But, if you do this at the same time, you're doing some of your other components, you're already under there anyway. So, it isn't as bad as having to come back and do it later for sure. But if this is something that you don't feel comfortable doing or feel like messing with, definitely understand it. You can always use our dealer locator network to hopefully get you going in the right direction and find a shop that might be able to set it up for you. But if you're going to tackle it yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our stoplight switch, we're going to be working on the driver's side here underneath the dash. And one of the things that I like to do first and foremost is grab our bracket and our switch and kind of start to get things prepped. One of the nice things with these stoplight switches is they're custom fit for your truck. And so this bracket's already going to be pre-made to utilize factory hardware. And so it makes everything just fit really well, right? And the way the stoplight switch works is really simple. So you have this plunger here. And whenever this is normally open, it's a normally open switch, right? So let's say if my thumb was the brake pedal arm, right? When that plunger is pushed in, and if the brake pedal was resting, say you're not pushing down on the brake pedal, you're not going to have power getting sent through that switch. But whenever the brake pedal starts to get pulled or pushed down, that plunger comes out, closes the switch, and sends power out to it. And so that's how it's going to operate the indicator light. I do want to mention I did remove some of our panels here. So the one that goes on the side and the center one, it's not absolutely necessary to do this, but it does make it much easier to see, especially, you know, when we're doing videos and everything. But it is helpful, you know, to see up in there. But if you want to do that, the side one, it just pops out. You can get a trim tool behind it, pop it out of place. This one, there will be a couple of 7mm head screws you can pull out, and this does the same thing. It just pops out of position. When we prep our switch, you can crimp on 2 butt connectors there on the wires coming off the back of it, and you want to set the switch up like this. So you have this long part of the bracket, right? Put it in that way, and all you do is you just remove one of the nuts and star washer, put the switch through there, tighten it down. And then the other end of this bracket, that'll bolt up to a factory stud underneath the dash. But since we're right here, I'll explain how you would make your adjustment on this, okay? Because these nuts are adjustable, right? So you can push a switch closer to the brake pedal arm or pull it back further. I usually start somewhere in the middle here. Usually gets you going. But what you're looking for is when the brake pedal arm is not being pushed down or anything, it's just sitting there. You're going to want this plunger to be almost completely depressed, right? All the way pushed in. You'll see, you know, just a little bit of it exposed, and that's kind of the perfect spot there. And so what can happen whenever, you know, whenever that brake pedal starts to get pulled down, that plunger is going to start moving, and almost as soon as that plunger starts moving, that's when you want power to get sent out and illuminate your light. I do like to hook our wires up before we even bother getting this up under the dash, and so pick out one of the black wires, doesn't matter which one. You want to connect that to the red wire from the coach link or the indicator light, and then the other one here I have an additional red wire. So they give you some extra wire in the kit, but since this has to get hooked up to the battery, it is going to fall a little short, so you might need to pick up a little bit more. If you don't have any, I would say probably, you know, 8 or 10 foot would be sufficient. Rather have enough than fall short. But we'll go ahead, we'll strip this end back here. Give a wire twist. And get it crimped down. Factory stud that we're going to use to secure the bracket is located right here. I circled it in yellow. It's, if you're looking at the brake pedal arm, it's just right to the left of it. And so what I'll do, because it's really difficult for 2 of us to be in there, I'll go ahead and remove that nut with a 13mm socket, slide the brake light switch bracket over the stud, and reinstall the nut. So I'll go ahead and get that done, show you how it turned out. Here's how the stoplight switch looks once you have it bolted into position. And now would be a great time too to make your adjustment like we talked about, and you know, at least get you in the ballpark and get it close. With that mounted up and everything, we can get our power wire hooked up, and so that'll have to go outside into the engine compartment. And I utilized or created a grommet or an opening in the firewall up here in this area. Here's how that grommet looks. So like I said, I was able to drill through the firewall, put that grommet in, was able to pass the wiring through it. All of our wires come out in this area, and then what I did, if you remember, we had this nylon air tube kind of just hanging up here. I used that same opening to pass this through inside of the vehicle, that way we can get it hooked up. With our power wire in the engine compartment now, it's going to get routed over towards the passenger side, and everything's just loosely routed now. You know, we'll come back and make sure everything's secured and whatnot, but just going to go over to the positive battery terminal. With our power wire, stoplight switch does come with an included fuse holder, so I use a butt connector to pair them two together. ring terminal on the other end goes to the positive battery post. And I am going to put our fuse in it. That way we can test it to make sure we have it adjusted properly. To do a quick check, you can take a test light and put it on the side of the switch. That's going to your indicator light or your coach link. And like we talked about, you shouldn't have any power. The brake pedals are sitting here, but as soon as you start to push it down, we have power. So we know the switch is adjusted properly. Now that we verified, everything's adjusted properly, come back and clean up all of your wiring. And with that done, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster custom fit stoplight switch kit on our 2024 GMC Canyon.